Hello and welcome. I'm Jaime Ocon, and here's what happened this week. Starting off here in Taiwan, rights groups gathered in the central city of Taichung to remember the people killed and injured in May's deadly metro crash. Our reporter Bing Wang was there.
Human rights groups marched to Taichung City Hall in central Taiwan to protest the government's lack of transparency regarding its investigation into a recent deadly train accident. 2 months ago, one person was killed and 10 others injured when a train failed to stop after a crane fell from a high-rise building onto the track. A video later surfaced showing it took 41 seconds before the train hit the brakes. The deadly train accident has renewed scrutiny of the metro system's safety guidelines. Activists say it's taking too long for the Taichung city government to conduct an investigation.
They should release the more related information to the public and to tell us who was the responsible to the accident, the tragedy, and also what could be done to prevent all these tragedy happen in the future.
Human rights groups say it is not only doing a disservice to Shuya, the woman who was killed in an accident, but to the general public.
那这不仅是为淑雅讨公道，其实也是为了全民，为了台中市民，然后为了台湾的全民，针对这个公共安全的促进，我们希望可以尽一份力。
So far, the metro has announced new protocols, strengthening safety standards for future accidents. But activists say that's not enough. There needs to be an overhaul of the entire system, not just in Taichung, but all over Taiwan. Patrick Chen and Bing Wang in Taichung for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's cabinet has passed a revised draft of the Gender Equality Act. It follows a wave of accusations of sexual harassment against high-profile figures from Taiwan's political and entertainment circles. James Chater reports.
Over the past few months, a wave of sexual harassment allegations has rocked Taiwanese society. Accusations have been made against high-profile figures from the worlds of entertainment and politics, reaching all the way to Taiwan's ruling party. In response, the government has published new amendments to laws aimed at protecting victims. New proposals include raising jail time to a maximum of 3 years and increasing fines for employers that commit offences.
这一次的修法的重点，就是希望以保护被害人为中心，这个核心精神。
今天的记者会现在开始。
The amendments follow what's been called Taiwan's Me Too moment, sparked by a Netflix series that depicted a political staffer facing sexual harassment at work. The show has inspired more than 100 accusations in real life, but rights groups said existing laws don't protect those who come forward.
他会说，我就是想要告那个行为人。 可是，在现行的法律系统里面，他没有办法按照性骚扰防治法去提出申诉，就因为我们大家都在做切割。
The new proposals still need to be passed by Taiwan's legislature, but lawmakers are hoping this wave of public pressure will be what's needed to enact lasting change. Andy Xue and James Chater for TaiwanPlus.
A new Taipei councillor may face legal action from Taiwan's defense ministry. His offense? Claiming that soldiers' body armor doesn't stop bullets. Charlie Schroyer has more.
This is a bulletproof vest that has failed to stop a bullet. The man who fired that bullet is Lin Pingyu, a recently elected new Taipei city councillor. He claims the vest is the type of body armor used by Taiwan's armed forces. A former paratrooper, Lin devotes much of his time to analysing defence issues. In early July, he took this vest to the US to team up with a YouTuber going by the name Uncle Sam Gun and Fun, and to test the body armour with live ammunition, specifically against a 5.8mm round like the type used by China's armed forces. The results, posted on the internet, show the bullet easily penetrated the vest. Understandably, this improvised test has not been welcomed by the authorities back home. Now, Taiwan's military says it will take legal action against the councillor if the materials used in the video are found to be controlled items of the armed forces. That is to say, if the body armour was the genuine article.
那影片当中有因为抗弹板它的来源不明，那现在还在查证当中。如果查证属实，确实是属于管制军品的话，那本部 也会将依法来追究相关人员的法律责任。
But some defense experts in Taiwan have voiced support for Lin. They say that the flexible gun regulations in the US could provide a good opportunity to test Taiwan's military equipment.
Testing could only be good, right? Like, this engenders more sort of a discussion on, what sort of equipment is necessary and what sort of equipment is produced domestically that could actually fit the requirements.
The Defense Ministry insists that the body armor issued to Taiwan's soldiers has passed all necessary requirements, which includes testing in the US. But Lin has pushed back, saying that real combat situations are a lot different from controlled test environments. He also says there are a number of serving members of the armed forces who support him, and he's prepared to face the consequences of his actions.
那无论后面国防部有什么样的这个作为，那只要是法律上有规范的，那对国家好的，我想我们都会全力来配合。
And with Taiwan's largest annual military exercises now just a couple of weeks away, the Defense Ministry must now convince the public that the country's troops are properly equipped. Patrick Chen, Andy Xue, Sam Hui and Charlie Storer for TaiwanPlus.
Moving on to some international developments. U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has hailed a step forward in U.S. China relations after wrapping up talks in a landmark 4-day visit to Beijing. Yellen says the talks were substantive and direct, but she says the two countries still have significant disagreements over what she calls Beijing's unfair economic practices. U.S.-China relations have grown more tense in recent years amid U.S. concerns about human rights and the situation in the Taiwan Strait. Yellen's visit comes just weeks after a similar visit by U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken. To find out more about Yellen's trip and what it could mean for the U.S.-China relationship, our reporter Rick Lauert spoke to political scientist Ian Zhuang.
What do you think Yellen set out to do in Beijing, and do you think she was successful?
I think the expectations were low. It seems that Yellen set out to communicate the U.S. position on the economics. She set out to get to know the new economics team in the PRC. So I think both sides are trying to feel their way around right now to see what is possible. So I don't think there's any conclusion. You see that from the readouts on the two sides. While the Yellen U.S. readout was positive, there's nothing particularly concrete there. The PRC readout was a lot more cautious.
Is there any sense of how the two sides are going to overcome some of the big issues that have created these trade tensions over the last few years?
So what we're seeing now are some very early steps, and we're seeing a slew of Biden administration officials going over to the PRC. So they are all responsible for different areas. Yellen's obviously responsible for the economic piece. So that, I think, will help Beijing and Washington get a better sense, right, of where along those whole range of different issues, including on trade, can they find some common ground that is feasible to work on.
To what extent do the other disagreements between China and the US, for example, differences over Taiwan, affect the trade relations?
So I suppose there's some aspect of it. These different issue areas are also interlinked. Taiwan is only one of them. So what we are seeing is sometimes the PRC could take one issue such as Taiwan and to use that as a means to, call for a shifting of the U.S. position or to put blame on the U.S. We've not seen that so far. So I suppose that suggests a degree of willingness by Beijing, in addition to Washington, to want to move forward on their relationship.
That was Rick Lauert speaking to Ian Zhuang of the National University of Singapore. All eyes were on Lithuania as the NATO summit got underway. It's opened on a high note. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan says he will forward Sweden's bid to join NATO to Turkey's parliament. And some Asia-Pacific leaders are also attending the crucial summit. Louise Watt reports.
Mr. President, when will Turkey ratify membership of Sweden?
One clear consequence of Russia's war in Ukraine, NATO is getting bigger. After holding out for months, Turkey's leader says he won't block Sweden from joining the security alliance. This came after Sweden agreed not to provide support to militant Kurdish groups that Turkey sees as terrorists. and to support Turkey's accession to the European Union. Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan says he will forward Sweden's bid to join to Turkey's parliament as soon as possible, something welcomed by NATO.
Completing Sweden's accession to NATO is an historic step that benefits the security of all NATO allies at this critical time. It makes us all stronger and safer.
Expansion is just one thing on the agenda of NATO's two-day summit in Lithuania. Leaders will also discuss what and how much support they should give to Ukraine as its war with Russia goes on. The security alliance is made up of 29 European nations and the United States and Canada. But also attending this summit, leaders from Asia-Pacific, including Japan, Australia, New Zealand and South Korea, whose President Yoon Suk-yeol is looking for closer security ties as his country deals with increasing nuclear and missile threats from North Korea. NATO is increasingly interested in talking with countries in the Asia-Pacific and plans to set up a liaison office in Tokyo. An unpopular move with countries in the region that don't see NATO as a favourable presence. China and Russia have bonded over a distrust of the West. And as NATO meets, the Speaker of the Russian Parliament's upper house is in Beijing.
Всеобъемлющего партнерства и стратегического взаимодействия наивысшего развития, как вы отмечали, наивысшего уровня в своей истории продолжает поступательно развиваться.
In June, for the first time, NATO listed China as a strategic priority, accusing it of rapidly expanding its nuclear capability and threatening Taiwan. China says this is a smear because its foreign policy isn't in line with what NATO wants. And what NATO wants is to uphold its members' safety and boost neighbouring Ukraine's defence, sending a message to Russia that any expansion of the conflict is unacceptable. Leon Lien and Louise Watt for TaiwanPlus.
To find out more about the growing relationship between the Indo-Pacific nations and NATO, Harel Hughes spoke to Zuza Anna Ferenzi, an EU-Taiwan relations expert in Taipei.
So what is different about this year's NATO summit?
So this year's NATO summit takes place in a very tense global context. The entire global strategic landscape has shifted both in the Euro-Atlantic region, but also in the Indo-Pacific global dimension. And this comes through the growing strategic alignment between Russia and China. So NATO members have been on high alert, seeing this cooperation between China and Russia, this friendship growing. And this, in fact, poses a global threat to the international order.
We've been seeing a much larger focus on the Indo-Pacific region in all these NATO discussions. So what does that mean for Taiwan in general?
This is an investment in deterrence. And going forward, this will be important. What happens in the Indo-Pacific affects the Euro-Atlantic region, and there is a growing sense of urgency. This helps the countries in the region to protect their interests and to ensure that there is peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait, because that is ultimately also the interests of countries in Europe.
That was Harel Hughes speaking with EU-Taiwan relations expert Zuza Anna Ferenzi in Taipei. Thank you for watching. Here's what happened. Remember to download the TaiwanPlus app for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, check out these shots of inflatable mascots just vibing it up at the port in Kaohsiung. I'm Jaime Ocon. Take care and see you next week.
I'm Eric Gao in Tokyo, and you're watching TaiwanPlus News, the voice of freedom in Asia.